first question, how would what term or words would you use to describe culture then, if we're taking culture out of the lexicon because it's arguably hard to interpret, or it can be interpreted in a number of different ways? How would you elevate that language?
Can't wait to go to work. Can't wait to go to work. You wake up, I can't wait to go to work.
Interesting.
It's not a word, but you know.
It's a lot of words.
What? Well,
but it's interesting, I hear your point.
You know, if you wake up and jump out of bed because you can't wait to go to work.
It's third grade language.
Yeah.
If you're enthusiastic.
Yeah. If you jump out of bed and say, I can't wait to go to work, as opposed to, another shitty day in paradise. I don't know what you say, but that's not a bad culture. That's not a bad question. How many of you can't wait to come to work, and you got to get it anonymously? What do we need to do differently going forward so that when you jump out of bed, you go, oh great, as opposed to oh shit?
And to put a picture to it, it's the scene in Jerry Maguire where his mentor says, in the morning I clap my hands and say it's a new day, I'm going to work or something. I can't remember the exact quote.
Yeah.
I probably can, I'm just trying not to be too geeky.
Yeah. But you bring up something, there's something called experience near language. And experience near language means that when you read these steps that I went over, you can almost experience them. As soon as something becomes the least bit abstract, you have to think about it. Sometimes you can't get to your thinking because your mind is so cluttered with shit. So the more you can make it experience near, I'd welcome you come, follow up with me and say, I got the word for can't wait to get up in the morning.
I'm going to work on that.
I'll work on that. Okay. Questions?
So Steve, she touched upon this a minute ago. Johnny complimented you on your intense focus as you look back, connecting the dots. What about the impact on your family, and how would you change that if you were doing it over again? Did you in fact sacrifice some of your family for the sake of changing the world?
Yes. But here's how I would change it. And this is very focused. If I realized that everything in my life competed for time but not importance, I would make sure that if I was with my family, I was totally present. But I would learn to be able to go from that to something else the way lawyers go from one file to another, and they're able to disconnect here because they can't go any further, and they're fully present with the next thing. So you should only have important things in your life, but they all compete for time, and there's a way to learn that skill where you're fully present as opposed to you're preoccupied, you're bringing work into home, home into work. You're hurting everyone. But you can learn that skill. Other questions? You can put on the last slide.
When you spoke about values and mission and vision not connecting to people who work in an office or in a company, to me what's interesting is more about making those more relevant, making them simpler, making them experiential. The words you use for the plan, if you change what it means to have what the mission looks like or the values that a company holds and make them connect to the people who work there, involve them in that process, you change the meaning of those. So those inherently aren't irrelevant. We just have to change how we're creating them, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that, do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I agree with it. A lot of words have a certain half-life. And most of the words you hear about, like vision, the half-life is over. When someone came up with it, why don't our company have a vision? It was great. I'll tell you something, for people who are into personal development, something whose half-life is just about gone is the word transformation. It's done. And you're laughing because you agree with me. But you bring up something else because I have been drawn to these natural sciences and biology, and I've become a student of that. And something that I've learned about since I've died, I'm interested in neuroscience. And there's something in neuroscience, I don't know if any of you know about this, but there's something in your brain called mirror neurons. How many of you have ever heard of the term mirror neurons? So mirror neurons were discovered in macaque monkeys in the late 1980s, and they were thought to be, they were called monkey see, monkey do neurons, because what happens is they are behind imitation, learning, and empathy, and people who are on the spectrum don't mirror other people. And there's something called a mirror neuron gap. And a mirror neuron gap means when instead of connecting with someone, you disconnect from them, the gap gets greater. And then what happens is when the gap is intolerable, it triggers another part of your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is in your middle brain. And if the mirror neuron gap is so awful, it triggers the amygdala to hijack you away from being able to think rationally. And I'm seeing this from where I am in America, the political scene. There's a lot of amygdala hijacking going on and people not thinking rationally. But here's the plus. When you close the mirror neuron gap, it's an amazing feeling. So all those things from user experience close the mirror neuron gap. Something else I'll tell you that's about mirror neurons, the reason you cry at tearjerker movies is, think of, I guess there was a movie, Silver Lining Playbook. That's a chick flick. A guy flick was Whiplash, about the drummer. All through the movie there's a gap between people. They're missing each other. And then at the end, in Silver Lining Playbook, when the stars connect with each other and they love each other, you cry. At the end of Whiplash, when the drummer student connects with that terrible coach, you cry. Why? Because you're living through them and you have gaps with other people that you will never close. And you live through them, and when it gets closed like that and you're not alone and you're one, the feeling of relief you feel when the mirror neuron gap goes away causes you to cry. Some of you are too young. When I used to think of mirror neurons up there, because I was older. I mean, I'd be 61 now. There was a movie called Field of Dreams, and anyone who's ever seen it who's older, it's the father-son thing. It especially attaches to me because I was adopted. You know, I love my parents, but you know that lost kind of thing. You know, it's still a part of me. It's still a part of me. Other questions?
I'm curious if you've made contact with anyone from Apple since you've returned. And they might be curious to hear what you have to say.
It's a work in project. Apparently I show up in a lot of nightmares. And I feel for the Macintosh team because I'd beat the shit out of them. I mean, if you listen to the interviews with them, on the one hand, they'll say, oh, it was terrific, blah, 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 but I did get divorced and I don't know my children.
But are they aware that you have returned and are making some appearances now? Has there been any contact?
No, this is beta. Okay. You know, and as you see in this slide, I really welcome input. You know, I'm getting a little sluggish. I hope I'm not boring. I think it's the lack of air conditioning, but maybe I'm boring. I don't know. But any input you have. But I'm also looking for venues. I'm going to do this. I have 4 scheduled in the next 3 months. And a year from now, I'm going to do it at Apple in front of the company. Because I'm Steve Jobs.
I got some feedback for you. One of the investors in my company is called David Austin, and he was an Apple exec. And for 20 years, he was in a daily call with Steve Jobs. And when I met him, I wanted to get a reference. So I called a couple of people. This is the investor I'm talking about. I called a couple of people and I said, do you know David Austin? And someone called me back and said, yeah, he's got balls of steel. Because he was in this daily meeting with Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs was famous for not only not having a sense of humor, but being kind of artistic and actually taking an awful pleasure in people fucking up. If you fucked up, he would enjoy it. And he would make sure that if you left, you'd never work for anyone else again. And I put the phone down, and the phone rang again. I picked it up. The guy goes, no, he had balls of titanium. So, my feedback, yeah, I never met Steve Jobs, but I have someone in my life who knew him well. I think he'd be way worse than you are. I had less smiling, much more like enjoying people's sort of vicarious pleasure in people's downfall. You know, he was a hard guy, I think.
When you're dead, one of the things you think about, and raise your hand if you've had this moment even without being dead, when as right as you thought you were was as wrong as you turned out to be.
Right.
It can make you start to doubt everything you know.
Right.
And so from being dead, especially, you know, I'm this icon, I have this legacy, but, and I talked about connecting dots. I didn't connect Apple into its future. That's why I'm coming back, so I hope this is helpful.
Right.
But I do like being an asshole.
So what really resonated with me is the concept of whoa, wow, yeah. And is there a good framework for thinking about how to develop ideas that incorporate those 4 elements so that we can easily develop ideas that automatically have more intrigue?
When this guy Goulston, who's imitating me, except he's being too nice, used to do a talk about Steve Jobs and whoa, well, yes, to CEO and tech groups. One of the things, and he got all 5s, because he asked people to talk about the moment they came up with the idea for their company and started it. And there was always that whoa, wow, yes. So what I would suggest in your companies is go around in your teams, because everybody's had a whoa, wow, yes, whether to get married, whether to get divorced, whether to have, it doesn't matter. But what you want to do is entrain their neurons into the whoa, wow, yes space. What I did with those videos was to get you into that space. And that's what I did with the CEOs, and they loved it because they relive that moment of discovery. If you come at it from the left brain and you're not getting that from them, it's going to be heavy lifting. Any final questions? I think we're good to go. Thank you all for coming.